All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. My voice is gone, so I'll be a little in and out for this show, but hopefully we'll be able to make it through it. But last week was a solid week, so glad we were able to keep that going. Hopefully, we can keep the train going for this week, but we'll see. Um, this is a solid slate, like a solid six gamer. We have some big names listed as questionable, so the slate could get a little bit more spicy, but we'll wait and see what happens there. On this show, we go game by game, talk about guys we like, guys we don't, that we might not like as much, and then on the pre-lock show, which is at 5:30 p.m. today, we actually utilize the Domination Station DFS Army's optimizer, and I show how I'm using it on this slate. But that's for VIP members only. So let's go ahead and jump into this slate. Usually we look at the previous night's slate, but I don't play NBA DFS on Sundays, so can't do that here. Starting off with the Pacers, we have an interesting slate. Like I said, guys, we have some big names questionable. We have Benedict McThurin questionable, Chris Duarte is questionable, Isaiah Jackson's questionable, and then Tyrese Halliburton's out, and we all know how much of an impact that still has at this point. The interesting thing here is that, as I'm sure most of you know, Jordan Nora has been playing pretty well over the last few slates with Halliburton out, and um, they have a fantastic matchup against the Hornets, who we all know are god awful, and we can pick on whenever we want to pick on them. So the who actually ends up being out between Mathurin, Duarte, Jackson all matters because if Chris Duarte comes back and if he moves into the starting lineup, that's going to hurt guys like Nora's upside. And so that's going to matter. Want to see if Mathurin ends up playing because, of course, that will also impact the usage rates. But Mathurin might be on a minutes limit, so might be a little bit less impactful. And then, of course, if Isaiah Jackson's out, that really stabilizes the front court situation that we're dealing with when it comes to the Pacers tonight. So thank God this game is one of the first games on the slate because that starting line is going to matter a lot to me. And then Miles Turner, we play these bigs against the Hornets all the time, and we are going to keep playing these bigs against the Hornets. Miles Turner is one of those bigs I'm always trying to find a reason to play, and there's like he's going to be a leverage play for me tonight. We'll see what his ownership is. It's possible I think he'll probably be fairly popular. So if he's in that 40 to 50% range on a 6-game slate, he won't be like a true leverage play, which for me, a true leverage play is someone that I'm going double the field on. But Miles Turner, if he's already very, very highly owned on a 4-game slate, I'll consider the possibility of making him close to a lock. I'll consider it, but more likely than not, I'll probably only be 10 to 20% over the field on him if he's already that highly owned. If he's in that 20 to 30% range from a projected ownership, then he's more likely to be a true leverage play for me where I'm willing to go like 40 or 60. Hopefully that makes sense. Trying to give a little bit of insight into how I think about leverage plays, but we'll see what the ownership looks like there. But yeah, assuming that at least a few of these questionable guys for the Pacers are out, I plan on having plenty of exposure to these guys tonight. You can't forget about Buddy Hield and TJ McConnell as well. But like I said, that starting lineup is going to be huge for me. Next up, and also is one of the third highest game total on the slate, and it has the closest spread. Like that's a game that I like to have exposure to. For the Hornets, Cody Martin's out, Mark Williams is out, LaMelo Ball's out. Nothing really too surprising there. The thing that we like here is this soft matchup against the Pacers. They're not a team we have to fear from a defensive standpoint, and you can see that even when we look at just like the column for fantasy points over dollar. These guys are projecting well. They're in a solid situation. We might get better value on this slate, and that should decrease the popularity of the Hornets tonight. So I want to see where they fall from a projected ownership standpoint. I might be willing to take some shots on them here, but more likely than not, I'll probably just be around field weight because no one's standing out for me too much, to be honest. But I do want exposure to this game in general, so I'll have it. We talked about Dennis Smith Jr. We talked about him a good bit last week. He's a fine play, but hope we get better guard value on this slate where I don't have to go over the field on him. If we don't get any big injury news, he's someone that I'll probably have to be a little bit over the field on just to, make lineups work out tonight. But good game. I like this game. The Bulls against the 76ers, lowest game total on the slate, automatically, and a relatively widespread. Automatically not a game I want to force a ton of exposure to. These are two solid defensive teams. The Bulls have Alex Caruso listed as questionable, and so if Alex Caruso's out, the Bulls are a worse defense, but still not a team I love to attack either way. Javonte Green is listed as questionable, matters a little bit. Lonzo Ball is out. So there's some moving pieces here. If Caruso's out, that's a boost to guys like Patrick Williams and some of the other guards for the Bulls, but still not my favorite spot for them, but I would allow it if he was out. Vucevic's really the only guy from the Bulls big three that I'm considering as a potential leverage play, but we'll have to see what ownership looks like. When it comes to DeRozan and Levine, when they're healthy, I just trust the domination station to give me exposure if it feels like they're in good spots. But again, I don't like to pick on the Sixers too much, so not a spot I'm going to force myself. For the Sixers, James Harden not on the injury report, so it looks like he'll be playing. PJ Tucker, Mr. Useless, is listed as questionable, so we'll see if he plays. I don't really care too much. Joel Embiid, if he's super low owned, I'll consider it, but honestly, not my favorite spot for him. So not trying to force it here. But if he's super low owned, I think we can make a case for picking on Vucevic. He's not someone we have to be overly concerned about. I do prefer taking shots on Harden, Maxey, if Embiid's the one who's getting all the ownership. I do think they could be a little sneaky, but those are like the only two guys I'm looking at for one-offs. And again, most of what I do here will be around ownership. The sim model does like Harden and Maxey, but it just kind of likes their price tags, and it has for a while. Next up, we have the Timberwolves against the Knicks. Not a bad total, but still on the lower end in comparison to some of the other games on the slate. Spread at 8.5 points. Not awful. The biggest thing here of the Timberwolves is that everybody is questionable. We have Anthony Edwards listed as questionable. Rudy Gobert listed as questionable. Naz Reid is questionable. Jalen Noel is doubtful. Austin Rivers is questionable. And then Cat's been out for a while. I think the popular sentiment is that people are expecting Gobert and Reid to play because they've been playing for a while now. So it'd be a little bit weird if they ended up not playing, but weird stuff happens in NBA, just in the NBA in general, but in particular when it comes to NBA DFS. So I'm not gonna, just because they've been playing, it doesn't mean they're going to keep playing. Weird shit happens. But of course, if everyone plays, but Anthony Edwards is the one who gets ruled out, we see guys like Rudy Gobert see a boost. Naz Reid sees a boost. Jaden McDaniels sees a boost. Even Kyle Anderson and Mike Conley. The matchup against the Knicks isn't my favorite one to attack, but still definitely viable on this slate. Michael Ortiz, good to see you, man. Thomas Dye, I think I said what's up. I hope I did. In my head, I did. Hopefully it came out. Good to see you guys. Good to see you guys. Also, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel out a lot. Here at DFS Army, we do a lot of prop. We focus on daily fantasy, but here lately we have a lot of videos on our channel around like underdog and prize picks that have been doing very well. So definitely recommend everyone go check those out as well. And then, of course, if you want to be a VIP member, like I said, click the link in the description. Feel free to use the promo code BOB, and you can check out our pre-lock show later today. And we also have a lot of tools and other NBA DFS coaches who've had a lot of success that can help you out as well. But yeah, the Timberwolves, another team with a lot of questionable tags, could definitely be very interesting on this slate if the right people end up being out. If Anthony Edwards plays, he's extremely playable. He's actually probably one of my favorite leverage plays on this slate. I think he will be low owned here. The matchups against the Knicks isn't my favorite, but the $8,900 price tag is still leaving a little bit of meat on the bones for the upside. he brings to the table. So if that's going to equal low ownership, and if Anthony Edwards plays, I not love, but I like this spot a lot for him here. He's been in fantastic form too. So yeah, pretty big game for me at least. Uh, the Knicks, everyone's healthy here. You can take your one-off shots like Mitchell Robinson at 4,500 is always interesting, but the minute uh floor inconsistency is just very volatile. So one of those hit or miss plays. If he's only like 5% owned, I'm willing to put a 10% man on him and make him a leverage play from that standpoint. I think that's viable, but it's just when this team's healthy, ideally there will be better plays once some of this injury news kind of shakes things up a little bit, because we'll definitely get some with all the guys we have questionable on this slate. So it's just by the time we get to lock, will Mitchell Robinson still be one of the stronger leverage plays on the slate? We'll just have to wait and see. But if the slate happened right now, he would be a leverage play for me. Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson are tough for the stomach. For me, it's going to come down to ownership. If they're criminally low owned, I would consider taking a shot. But all things being even, I don't want a lot of exposure to these guys tonight. Next up, we have the Dallas Mavericks. And once again, we have some big questionable tags on deck. Your guys, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, they're questionable. And we have seen over the last 2 weeks the impact that these guys have in DFS when they play and when they're out. We've seen Hardy have big games. We've seen Green have big games. And some other players as well. Tim Hardaway becomes viable. Christian Wood has become viable on some slates too. So a lot of guys we do not want to forget about in this game. If Doncic and Irving miss, if Doncic and Irving play, honestly, I don't have a ton of interest. Yeah, I wouldn't have a lot of interest if they both play. But all I care about here is the injury news, and hopefully we get this by lock, because it's gonna impact a lot. For the Memphis Grizzlies, the guys, these questionable tags are not slowing down. John Morant's out. He's been out for a little bit now. Jaren Jackson Jr. is questionable. That's probably the biggest thing here at this point. Brandon Clark and Steven Adams have been out for a while. I think people know how to react to this. I mean, if Jaren Jackson Jr. ends up missing time, that's a boost to Santi Aldama. You guys remember earlier this year when we were doing that and how well that panned out? We'd be able to go right back to that. We would even see Roddy see a slight boost as well from like a minute standpoint. But the guys I would really be prioritizing if Jackson was out would be guys like Bane, who already sees a nice increase in usage, but would see an even larger increase if JJJ was out. Tyus Jones would get a boost for me. But the guy who actually leads the team in usage when Jaren Jackson Jr. is out is one of my favorite guys, Dillon Brooks. There's some sarcasm there for guys who've been watching for a while. But Dillon Brooks would be a leverage play for me tonight, especially if Jaren Jackson Jr. is ruled out. And my thought process there is that Dillon Brooks is rarely high owned, even when he's in pretty solid spots. And so I think that could be a little sneaky. We need to see what ownership actually is, because if Dillon Brooks ends up being super chalky, I don't plan on going over the field on that. He will not be a core play for me, but I am willing to play him when I think he'll be under owned. So something to keep an eye out for sure. A lot of interesting spots, guys. I like this slate. I just hope we get the news. If we don't, it's gonna have to take some risk. Next up, we have the Warriors against the Rockets. Another big questionable tag. We have Kevin Looney listed as questionable, starting center for the Warriors. Andrew Wiggins has been out for a while now. It's probably the things that matter the most. No surprise here when Looney misses. There's quite a few guys who can see an impact, but it will really depend on the rotation. And what gets a little bit scarier is that there's a 10.5 point spread. So the risk of a blowout is also there. Curry's in a fantastic spot tonight. I'm interested in seeing where his ownership is to see if people are scared of the blowout. You guys know my philosophy. If I feel like a guy is under owned in a plus matchup, um, I don't care if there's going to be a blowout. I'm willing to play it. If there's a guy who's chalky in a plus matchup in a game that's has a potential to blow out, I'm more so willing to just kind of match the field weight and not try to go over the field on that kind of play. So we'll see how it pans out. I do think if Looney ends up being out, there's a chance we see more Thompson and Poole tonight. I think Draymond Green's the main guy that I feel the safest with, who I would force exposure to if Looney was out. Obviously, Kuminga would see a bit of a boost as well, along with JaMychal Green too. So some interesting pieces here. It really just depends on how Kerr decides to run his rotations tonight, but definitely an interesting and viable spot. And then if you're really going for the blowout narrative, I understand like taking some shots on Green and Lamb here, but as of right now, not where I'm trying to go. But again, interested in ownership, which we'll have later today for the pre-lock show. Next up, we have the Rockets. Again, the Rockets are pretty healthy, so not a team I've liked to force exposure to in these situations. We have seen Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green still be able to have strong performances in these spots, though. And in a soft matchup against the Golden State Warriors, if this game for some reason stayed close, it wouldn't shock me if they had something to do with it. Of course, Shungen, I feel like we haven't really been playing him a lot here recently. But we have been playing bigs against the Warriors. So I do want to kind of dig a little bit deeper into him and just kind of see what's going on. As long as I feel solid about his minutes and his recent usage production, and if he's still low owned, I'm open to taking a shot on him, but we got to dig a little bit deeper there, to be honest. The other pieces like Smith, Martin, Eason, I don't love when everyone's healthy. All right, one more game. We have the Kings against the Utah Jazz. For the Kings, Kevin Huerter's questionable. Trey Lyles is questionable. These things matter, especially when it comes to the Kings, because we know this is a streaky shooter team. And you take one streaky shooter out like Kevin Huerter, you get another streaky shooter like Terrence Davis, who tries to show up. And Malik Monk sees a boost. Harrison Barnes, like these kind of guys become slightly more viable on a slate like this if Kevin Huerter's out. Trey Lyles, his impact is important. I think that could provide some minute security to guys like Kessler, Barnes, Sabonis. But honestly, I'm pretty indifferent to Trey Lyles, whether he plays or doesn't play. I still doesn't really move the needle for me too much. But with that being said, like if Trey Lyles is out, you could talk me into playing Sabonis a little bit easier. As of right now, Sabonis and Fox aren't on my radar at least they're not very high on my rankings list for the night. It is the last game on the slate, so once again, if they're criminally under-owned, I'll make sure to force some exposure, but not my favorite spot. For the Jazz are a bit more interesting for me tonight, and it's probably because Lauri Markkanen's questionable. Lauri Markkanen, I think if he doesn't play tonight, and Lauri Markkanen's questionable. Jordan Clarkson's out, and Colin Sexton's been out for a while. Those are pretty big, high usage people, and so I think we would expect Simone to get the start if Markkanen ends up being out. Vanessa Mealy said, "What's your name on DK?" It's Bob226 everywhere. So yeah, Clarkson ends up getting, with Clarkson and Markkanen being out, guys like Chris Dunn. There's quite a few guys that we can look towards. But really it's THT, Dunn, and then Simone Fontecchio, who see the highest increase in usage and guys I want to consider. Walker Kessler, for me, whether Markkanen plays or doesn't play, is someone that I'm considering as a leverage play on this slate tonight. I think the sim model does like him. I like his price tag. Matchup against the Kings does not worry me. They are not a team we have to fear from a defensive standpoint. And so I do like the Jazz tonight. I would just feel better taking my shots on THT, Dunn, Agbaji, Simone if Lauri Markkanen's out. And again, these are value options that we can have that I would prioritize over some of the options that we were looking at in some of the previous games. So, like I said, guys, a lot of questionable tags and a lot of this injury news will dramatically impact the slate. So, my thought process is I'm going in with an open mind. I'm ready to react to a lot of this injury news and react quickly. That's usually the best edge you're going to get in DFS. And so, one of those slates where you shouldn't really hunker down what you want to do too much until we get that news. So, all right, y'all, I appreciate you for sticking it out with me. Sorry for the voice being in and out today, but look forward to seeing you all on the pre-lock show and making some magic happen. Have a good one. Peace out. Bye.